Before we begin, please note that the information provided in this video is for educational and informational purposes only, and is not intended as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. I am not a medical professional. Always seek the advice of your physician or another qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have seen in this presentation. You wake up, but you don't feel rested. Your first conscious thought isn't about the exciting day ahead. It's a wave of heaviness, a deep physical exhaustion that has nothing to do with how many hours you slept. The alarm clock isn't just a sound. It feels like a personal attack. You drag yourself to the kitchen, and the coffee that used to be your rocket fuel now feels like just a warm, bitter liquid that does absolutely nothing. You get to work or open your laptop and you stare at the screen. The words on that email, the numbers on that spreadsheet, they just blur. It's like your brain is wrapped in a thick, wet blanket. You know what you need to do. You have a to-do list. You have deadlines. You want to be productive, you want to be that sharp, on-the-ball person you know you can be. But your mind simply refuses to cooperate. It feels like you're trying to sprint through waist-deep mud. Every single thought is a monumental effort. Does any of this sound familiar? That feeling of being completely and utterly drained, even when you haven't done much of anything. For millions of Americans, this isn't a case of the Mondays. It's Tuesday. It's Wednesday. It's every single day. We throw a word around to describe this feeling. Burnout. We say it all the time. Ugh, I'm so burned out from this project. This week just completely burned me out. We use it to describe being tired, being stressed, being overworked. But what if I told you that using that word so casually is one of the most dangerous mistakes you can make for your mental health, for your career, and for your future happiness? What if I told you that what most of us call burnout is actually something entirely different? And that by misdiagnosing the problem, we are applying the completely wrong solution, which is like putting a band-aid on a broken leg and wondering why it's not healing. The truth is, there is a massive critical difference between being mentally fatigued and being in a state of true burnout. And understanding that difference is not just academic trivia. It is the single most important key to unlocking why you feel the way you do, and more importantly, what you actually need to do to fix it. Because one of these conditions is a warning light on your car's dashboard, a signal telling you to pull over, rest, and refuel. The other is your engine seizing up on the side of the highway at 70 miles an hour. One is a problem you can solve in a weekend. The other can take months or even years to recover from and can fundamentally change who you are. By the end of this video, you will have a crystal clear understanding of these two powerful forces. You will be able to precisely identify the symptoms, understand the root causes, and most critically, you will have a framework to diagnose which one you are actually experiencing. This isn't just about learning new vocabulary. This is about giving you the clarity to stop spinning your wheels, to stop trying solutions that don't work, and to finally start addressing the real issue that is holding you back and draining your life force. So let's start with the one we all experience, the one we so often mistake for its much more sinister cousin, mental fatigue. Think of your brain like a muscle. That's not just a cute analogy. It's functionally true. If you go to the gym and do bicep curls over and over and over again, what happens? Your bicep gets tired. It burns. It weakens. Eventually, you can't lift the weight anymore. You've reached muscle fatigue. Your brain's prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for focus, decision-making, problem-solving, and willpower, works in the exact same way. It has a finite amount of energy in a given day. Every decision you make, from what to wear, to how to respond to a difficult email, to resisting the urge to eat that donut in the break room, draws from that same energy reserve. Mental fatigue is simply what happens when you've done too many mental reps. You've exhausted that cognitive muscle. What does this actually feel like? The symptoms are incredibly common. The first and most obvious is brain fog. This is that wading through mud feeling I mentioned. It's when simple tasks feel incredibly complex. You read a paragraph in a report 3 times and still have no idea what it said. You walk into a room and stand there completely blank, having forgotten the one reason you went in there in the first place. It's a feeling of being mentally slow, like your processor speed has been throttled down to almost zero. Next up is increased irritability and emotional sensitivity. When your cognitive muscle is exhausted, your ability to regulate your emotions plummets. Think about it, it takes energy to be patient. It takes energy to give someone the benefit of the doubt. When that energy is gone, your fuse gets incredibly short. Your coworker asks a simple question and you snap at them. Your partner leaves a dish in the sink and you feel a surge of irrational anger. Little things that you would normally brush off suddenly feel like personal attacks. You might find yourself more prone to anxiety or feeling overwhelmed by things that are normally manageable. This is your brain essentially saying, I don't have the resources to handle this right now. Another huge sign of mental fatigue is procrastination and avoidance. That big important task on your to-do list? When you're mentally fresh, you might tackle it head-on. But when you're mentally fatigued, the very thought of starting it is so draining, so overwhelming, that you do anything and everything to avoid it. You suddenly decide it's the perfect time to organize your desktop icons, or scroll through social media, or go get another cup of coffee. This isn't you being lazy. This is a self-preservation mechanism. Your brain recognizes that it doesn't have the fuel to perform that high-energy task, so it pushes you toward low-energy, distracting activities instead. So where does this fatigue come from? It's usually tied to a specific period of intense cognitive effort. Think about cramming for final exams in college, or pushing through a massive project to meet a deadline at work, or even something emotionally draining, like navigating a difficult family situation, or planning a big event like a wedding. These are periods of sustained, high-level mental output. You're making hundreds of micro-decisions, you're holding complex information in your head, you're constantly problem-solving. You are overexerting that cognitive muscle day after day. But here is the single most important defining characteristic of mental fatigue. This is the piece of information that separates it from burnout, and it's the key to our diagnostic framework. Mental fatigue is temporary and it is treatable with one simple thing: rest. When your bicep is exhausted from too many curls, what do? You stop. You let it rest for a day or two. And what happens? It recovers. It repairs itself. It might even get a little stronger. Your brain is the exact same. When you're mentally fatigued, a good night's sleep can make a world of difference. Taking a genuine weekend off, not checking emails, not thinking about work, but truly disconnecting, can feel like a complete system reboot. Taking a one-week vacation can bring you back to feeling 100%. The fatigue is a direct result of exertion, and it is directly resolved by a period of recovery. It's a simple equation. Energy out is greater than energy in, so you feel drained. To fix it, you just need to reverse the equation and put more energy back in through rest and disengagement. So if you're feeling that brain fog, that irritability, that overwhelming desire to procrastinate after a brutal week, ask yourself this one question. If I could take the next 3 days completely off with no phone, no email, no obligations, would I feel significantly better on Monday? If the answer is a resounding yes, then you are most likely dealing with mental fatigue. It's your brain's warning light, and it's telling you that you need to refuel. It's a sign that your work-life balance is off, that you're pushing too hard without adequate recovery. It's a problem for sure, but it's a solvable problem. It's a debt that can be repaid with the currency of rest. But what if the answer to that question is no? What if the thought of a 3-day weekend doesn't fill you with relief, but with dread, because you know it won't make a difference? What if you've taken vacations, you've slept for 10 hours a night, and you still wake up with that same profound sense of depletion, that same heavy, cynical feeling about everything? Well, that's when the warning light on the dashboard has been ignored for too long. That's when you're no longer just tired. That's when you've crossed the line from fatigue into the dangerous, soul-crushing territory of burnout. And burnout is a completely different beast. It's not a debt you can simply repay with a long weekend. It's a fundamental bankruptcy of your entire system. And understanding what that really means is what we're going to break down next. So let's talk about that bankruptcy. When a company goes bankrupt, it's not because it had one bad sales quarter. It's a systemic failure. Its assets are gone, its credit is shot, and it can no longer perform its basic function. Burnout is the human equivalent of that. Your core emotional, physical, and mental reserves, your assets, have been so completely depleted that you can no longer function the way you're supposed to. The system has crashed. The lights are off, and no amount of just trying harder is going to reboot the power plant. This isn't just a metaphor. The World Health Organization officially recognizes burnout as an occupational phenomenon. It's not a made-up feeling for people who can't handle stress. It's a legitimate syndrome, and it's defined by 3 core ingredients. Think of them as the 3 horsemen of the burnout apocalypse. If you see them riding towards you, you're not just tired, you're in trouble. The first and most obvious horseman is exhaustion. But this is not the kind of tired you feel after a great workout or a long productive day at the office. That's a good tired. It's a satisfying tired that's cured by a good meal and a solid night's sleep. The exhaustion of burnout is a deep, soul-crushing fatigue that sleep doesn't touch. It's waking up after 8, 9, even 10 hours of sleep and feeling like you haven't slept at all. It's feeling more tired when you wake up than when you went to bed. It's like your personal battery is fundamentally broken. With mental fatigue, your battery is at 10%. You can plug it in overnight, get some rest, take a break, and it charges back up to 100%. With burnout, the battery itself is damaged. You can plug it in for 12 hours, but it never charges past 20%. And that 20% drains down to zero by 10 a.m., leaving you to get through the rest of the day on sheer fumes. This is a profound lack of energy that seeps into every corner of your life. It's not just, I don't have the energy to finish this report. It becomes, I don't have the energy to make dinner, to call a friend, to play with my kids, to even watch a movie. Every single task, no matter how small, feels like you're trying to push a giant boulder up a steep hill. It's a complete and total energetic depletion. But if it were just exhaustion, we could probably manage. The real insidious nature of burnout comes from the second horseman: cynicism and depersonalization. This is the emotional core of the syndrome. It's a protective mechanism that has gone horribly wrong. Your mind, in an attempt to shield itself from further disappointment and emotional drain, starts to build a wall. You begin to feel detached from your job and the people connected to it. The passion you once had curdles into resentment. The engagement you felt turns into indifference. Think of a dedicated teacher who got into the profession because she loved helping kids learn. In the early stages of burnout, she starts to feel emotionally distant. She starts seeing her students not as bright young minds, but as a collection of problems to be managed. She stops staying late to help a struggling student. She starts referring to them in her mind as the difficult one or the lazy one. She's not a bad person. Her emotional system is overloaded. It's creating distance as a survival tactic. This is depersonalization. You start treating people like objects. A doctor starts seeing patients as just a series of diagnoses in room 304. A customer service agent starts seeing callers as annoying interruptions rather than people who need help. This cynicism is a poison. It makes you feel irritable, critical, and negative about everything. Your internal monologue shifts from, "We can figure this out," to "What's the point? Nothing ever changes anyway." You might find yourself being short with colleagues, complaining constantly, or developing a dark, sarcastic sense of humor about the work that once gave you meaning. This isn't just a bad attitude. It's a symptom. It's your brain putting up emotional barbed wire to stop anything from getting in, because you simply don't have the resources to care anymore. The well of empathy has run completely dry. And that leads us to the third and final horseman, the one that delivers the knockout blow: a reduced sense of accomplishment or inefficacy. This is where the bankruptcy becomes total. It's the persistent, nagging feeling that you are no longer effective at your job. Despite working harder than ever, you feel like you're accomplishing less and less. Your confidence plummets. Every task feels overwhelming. You start to doubt your own skills and abilities, the very skills that probably got you the job in the first place. This creates a terrifying feedback loop. The exhaustion makes it impossible to focus, so you make more mistakes. The cynicism makes you disengage, so the quality of your work suffers. And this poor performance then validates that horrible voice in your head that's telling you you're a failure. You look at your to-do list, and instead of seeing a set of manageable tasks, you see a mountain of evidence of your own incompetence. You think, "I used to be good at this. What happened to me?" The pride and satisfaction you once got from your work is replaced by a sense of futility and self-doubt. You feel like you're spinning your wheels in thick mud, burning all your remaining fuel but going nowhere. So it's this toxic trio: the bone-deep exhaustion, the emotional detachment and cynicism, and the crushing sense of inefficacy that defines burnout. It's not just one of these things. It's the devastating combination of all three. It's being too tired to function, too jaded to care, and feeling too incompetent to believe you can make a difference anyway. This is the state of systemic bankruptcy. You haven't just overdrawn your account. The entire bank has failed. And this is the critical distinction. Mental fatigue is a problem of recovery. Burnout is a problem of meaning, of connection, and of environment. You can't just sleep it off. You can't just take a vacation to fix it, because when you come back, you're returning to the very same conditions that broke you in the first place. So if that's the what, the next critical question is the why. And the answer is far more complex than just working too many hours. It's about a series of deep-seated mismatches in your work and life that act like a slow-acting poison to your soul. And uncovering those 6 specific mismatches is exactly where we're going next. These 6 mismatches are the true anatomy of burnout. Think of them not as individual problems, but as 6 cracks in the foundation of your work. A small crack, you can patch it, but when multiple cracks start to form and spread, the entire structure becomes unstable, and that's when collapse is inevitable. Let's walk through them one by one, and I want you to honestly ask yourself if any of these sound familiar. The first and most obvious mismatch is a workload skills imbalance. This is the classic too much to do, not enough time. But it's deeper than that. It's the feeling of being perpetually overwhelmed, of drowning in a sea of deadlines where every time you gasp for air, another wave crashes over you. It's a quantitative overload, the sheer volume of tasks, but it's also a qualitative one. It's being consistently asked to do work that you don't have the resources, the training, or the support to complete effectively. Imagine a graphic designer. Let's call her Sarah. Sarah loves design. She's creative, she's talented, but her company keeps piling on projects. What used to be 3 major projects a month is now 7. The deadlines are non-negotiable. She's no longer designing, she's just producing. The joy of creation is replaced by the frantic pressure to just get it done. Her to-do list has become a hydra. For every 1 task she completes, 2 more grow in its place. This isn't a challenging sprint. It's a marathon with no finish line, run at a sprinter's pace. That chronic, inescapable demand is the first crack in the foundation. The second mismatch is a lack of control. This is one of the most corrosive mismatches because it strikes at the heart of our human need for autonomy. This is when you have all the responsibility for the outcome, but zero authority over the process. You're told what to do, how to do it, and when to do it with no room for your own expertise or creativity. Let's go back to Sarah. She's just been handed a major branding project. She has a brilliant vision for it, but her manager micromanages every single decision. The color palette? Dictated. The font choice? Overruled. The core concept? Changed at the last minute based on the manager's fleeting whim, completely ignoring market research. Sarah is no longer a professional designer. She's a pair of hands operating a mouse for someone else. She's a puppet. This lack of control creates a state of learned helplessness. You start to think, why should I even bother suggesting ideas? They'll just be ignored or shot down anyway. You feel powerless, trapped. You're accountable for the results of a strategy you know is flawed, but you're forbidden from fixing it. That feeling of being a cog in a machine you cannot influence is the second deeper crack. The third mismatch is insufficient reward. And I am not just talking about your paycheck. Money is important, but this goes so much further. Reward is about recognition. It's about appreciation. It's about the emotional and social validation that your work matters. It's the simple, "Hey, great job on that presentation," from your boss. It's the public acknowledgement for landing a big client. It's the feeling of pride and accomplishment that comes from seeing your hard work pay off and having that effort seen by others. Now think about Sarah again. She pulls 3 all-nighters to finish that branding project, the one she had no control over. Against all odds, the client loves it. It's a huge success. And what does Sarah get? Silence. No email from her manager. No mention in the team meeting. The project's success is simply absorbed into the company's bottom line. And the next impossible deadline is dropped on her desk. The lack of reward, financial or social, sends a brutal message. Your effort is invisible. You are disposable. When your contribution is consistently undervalued and unrecognized, your motivation evaporates. The intrinsic joy of the work is gone, and there's no external validation to replace it. The well of your spirit starts to run dry. That's the third crack. The fourth mismatch is a breakdown of community. Humans are social creatures. We thrive on connection, support, and a sense of belonging. A positive workplace community can be a powerful buffer against stress. It's the colleague you can vent to, the team that has your back when you're struggling, the shared laughter over a stupid mistake. Burnout thrives in isolation. This mismatch occurs when that sense of community disintegrates. It's replaced by office politics, gossip, and backstabbing. Or worse, just a cold, sterile indifference where everyone keeps their head down, interacts as little as possible, and trusts no one. For Sarah, her team used to be her lifeline. They'd grab lunch, brainstorm together, and cover for each other. But after a reorg, the culture shifted. It became competitive. People started hoarding information and subtly sabotaging each other to get ahead. The team chat, once full of jokes and support, is now only used for curt, formal announcements. Sarah feels completely alone, surrounded by people but disconnected from all of them. This social isolation is devastating. When you face overwhelming work with no control and no reward, and you feel like you have no one to turn to, that's when the foundation really starts to crumble. The fifth mismatch is an absence of fairness. This is the silent killer of morale. It's the deep gut-level feeling that the system is rigged. It's seeing the boss's nephew, who is clearly incompetent, get the promotion you've been working towards for 2 years. It's watching as one set of rules applies to the executive team, and a much harsher set of rules applies to you. It's when workloads, pay, and promotions are handled not with transparency and equity, but through favoritism and hidden agendas. Fairness is the bedrock of trust. When you perceive unfairness, that trust is shattered. You start to feel cynical and resentful. You see your own hard work and integrity as pointless in a system that doesn't value it. Let's say Sarah discovers that a new hire, with half her experience, is making more money than her simply because he negotiated better or is friends with someone in power. That single piece of information can poison her entire perception of the company. It creates a sense of injustice that gnaws at you. Why give 100% for an organization that is fundamentally unfair? This breach of trust, this feeling that you're being cheated, is the fifth and perhaps most dangerous crack. Finally, the sixth mismatch, and often the most profound, is a conflict of values. This is when the work you are required to do violates your personal sense of ethics, morality, or what you believe is important. It's a mismatch between the demands of your job and your own soul. Sarah got into graphic design to create beautiful things that help people connect with good products. But now, her company's biggest client is a predatory payday loan company. She's being asked to design cheerful, friendly ads that deliberately mislead vulnerable people into taking on crippling debt. Every day, she has to pour her creative energy into a project she finds morally repugnant. This isn't just a bad day at the office. This is a crisis of identity. The work is asking her to be someone she is not. She's forced to either suppress her own values or live in a constant state of internal conflict. This kind of values conflict is exhausting on a spiritual level. It makes you feel disconnected from yourself, like a fraud. When your job forces you to betray your own core principles, it doesn't just burn you out. It can feel like it's breaking your spirit. So you see, it's never just one thing. It's the combination. It's the crushing workload, combined with the powerlessness of having no control. It's the sting of being unrewarded, amplified by the loneliness of a toxic community. It's the bitter resentment of unfairness, topped by the soul-crushing conflict of doing work that goes against everything you stand for. Any one of these can cause stress. But when these mismatches stack up, they create a perfect storm. They grind you down day after day, eroding your passion, your engagement, and your sense of self. This is the true pathway to burnout. It isn't a personal failing. It's a systemic failure. It's the result of these 6 fundamental cracks spreading through your work environment until the whole structure collapses on top of you. So now we see the enemy in plain sight. These 6 mismatches are the true anatomy of burnout. But recognizing them is one thing. How do you know if you're just teetering on the edge of mental fatigue, or if you've already fallen into the abyss of burnout? There are subtle, dangerous warning signs your body and mind are sending you right now, and ignoring them is the biggest mistake you can make. Let's start with the most insidious one, because it's the one we're all taught to ignore, to push through: emotional exhaustion. With mental fatigue, you feel drained. It's a direct cause and effect relationship. You cram for a final exam for 6 straight hours and your brain feels like mush. You finish a massive high-stakes project at work, and you feel completely spent. This is a normal, predictable feeling of depletion. It's like your phone battery hitting 10% after a day of heavy use. You know exactly why it's low, and you know exactly what to do about it. You plug it in. You get a good night's sleep, you spend a weekend relaxing, and by Monday you're recharged and ready to go. The feeling of tiredness is tied to a specific effort. You can say, "I am tired from doing that thing." Burnout is a different beast entirely. It's not a low battery. It's a broken battery that refuses to hold a charge. The exhaustion is chronic, pervasive, and it feels bone deep. You can sleep for 10 hours and still wake up feeling like you've run a marathon. The weekend comes and goes, but that feeling of being utterly depleted doesn't lift. It's a profound sense of emptiness. The key distinction is that the exhaustion becomes detached from its original cause. You're no longer tired from your work. You are tired of your work. You are tired of life itself. It's a constant heavy fog that follows you from the moment you wake up to the moment you fall into a restless sleep. You start needing more and more caffeine just to function at a basic level, not to excel but just to feel human. And even that stops working eventually. This isn't just being tired. This is your emotional core being hollowed out. The second warning sign is the shift from simple disengagement to a deep, corrosive cynicism. This is where things get dangerous, not just for your career, but for your soul. When you're mentally fatigued, you might disengage. You might find yourself scrolling through your phone during a boring Zoom meeting. Your mind wanders. You struggle to focus on a tedious spreadsheet. But here's the critical difference. You still care. Deep down, you still want the project to succeed, you still value your job, and you believe in the overall mission. Your disengagement is a temporary coping mechanism, a mental timeout because your brain is overloaded. Burnout replaces that temporary disengagement with what psychologists call depersonalization, or what the rest of us call a toxic level of cynicism. It's not just that you don't care. You start to actively feel negative and detached from your job and the people associated with it. A customer service representative who was once empathetic and helpful starts to see customers as annoying obstacles. A nurse who went into the profession to help people starts to view patients as a collection of symptoms and tasks, losing sight of the human being in the bed. A teacher starts to feel a growing resentment toward their students. You build an emotional wall around yourself as a defense mechanism. You use dark humor, you become irritable, you mock the very work you once found meaningful. You're not just taking a mental timeout anymore. You are emotionally withdrawing from the world. This cynicism is a poison. Starts with your job, but it doesn't end there. It seeps into your relationships, your hobbies, and your entire outlook on life, convincing you that nothing matters and no one can be trusted. This leads us directly to the third, and perhaps most devastating sign: the difference between a temporary drop in performance and a chronic sense of inefficacy. When you're mentally fatigued, your performance suffers. That's a given. You make more mistakes. Your creativity takes a nosedive. Simple tasks take twice as long. You know you're not on your A game. But, and this is everything, you also know it's temporary. You have a fundamental belief in your own competence. You think, wow, I'm really off my game today. I just need to get some rest, and I'll be back to normal tomorrow. Your identity as a capable, effective person remains intact. The problem is seen as external and temporary. The long hours, the difficult project. Burnout obliterates that fundamental belief. It doesn't just reduce your performance. It attacks your sense of self-worth. It fosters a deep, gnawing feeling of inefficacy. You start to believe that you are fundamentally incapable of doing your job well. Every task feels overwhelming. Every small mistake is seen as further proof of your incompetence. You could receive praise from your boss, and your burnout-riddled brain will dismiss it as pity or a fluke. You develop a paralyzing fear of failure, which ironically makes you less productive and more prone to error, creating a vicious downward spiral. It's the difference between saying, "I'm having a hard time with this task," and believing, "I am a failure." This isn't just about your output at work anymore. This is an assault on your identity. You lose confidence in your abilities, and you begin to wonder what the point of even trying is, because you're convinced you'll only fail anyway. So let's put this all together with an analogy. Think of your mental and emotional well-being as a car. Mental fatigue is the low fuel light. It's a clear, simple, and direct warning. It's telling you that you've used up your available resources and you need to refuel. The solution is straightforward. You pull over, you rest, you engage in activities that replenish your energy, you fill up the tank. Ignoring the low fuel light is a bad idea. You'll eventually sputter to a stop, but the fix is simple and the car itself isn't damaged. Burnout is the check engine light. This is a much more complex and ominous signal. It's not about fuel. It's telling you that there is a deeper systemic problem under the hood. Maybe it's a faulty sensor, a problem with the transmission, or a major engine malfunction. Simply pulling over and resting won't fix it. Filling the tank with gas won't make the light go away. Continuing to drive with the check engine light flashing is incredibly dangerous. You risk a catastrophic breakdown that could cause irreparable damage to the entire system. To fix it, you have to stop completely. You have to open the hood, diagnose the root cause of the problem, the toxic work environment, the unsustainable workload, the lack of support, the misalignment of values, and you have to make significant fundamental repairs. One is a problem of resource depletion, the other is a problem of a broken system. One requires rest, the other requires radical change. Recognizing which light is flashing on your personal dashboard is the first critical step. Because treating a check engine problem as if it's just a low fuel issue is why so many people remain stuck in the cycle of burnout for years, causing damage they don't even see. And the damage is very, very real. It's not just a feeling or a state of mind. We're talking about measurable physical changes to the most important organ in your body. So now that you can spot the warning signs, the critical question becomes, what is this chronic stress actually doing to your brain? The neurological science behind burnout is both terrifying and fascinating. It reveals how this prolonged state of alert can physically shrink parts of your brain responsible for memory and emotional regulation, while enlarging the fear center. This isn't an exaggeration. We're going to look at the brain scans and see exactly how burnout leaves a physical scar. Let's look at the evidence. When neuroscientists put burned out individuals under an fMRI scanner, the images are startling. They reveal a tangible physical record of the damage. The first area they look at is the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain right behind your forehead. Think of this as your brain's CEO. It's responsible for executive functions, decision-making, problem-solving, emotional regulation, and focusing your attention. In a healthy brain, this area is thick and bustling with activity. But in a brain ravaged by burnout, studies from institutions like the Karolinska Institute in Sweden show a noticeable reduction in gray matter volume. It literally thins. The CEO has effectively been downsized. What does that feel like in your day-to-day life? It feels like staring at your email inbox, completely unable to decide which message to answer first. It feels like reading the same paragraph 4 times and still not absorbing the information. It's that pervasive brain fog, that inability to concentrate, that frustrating sense that you're just not as sharp as you used to be. You're not imagining it. Your brain's command center is compromised. Simultaneously, another part of the brain is going into overdrive. Deep inside the temporal lobes lies the amygdala, your brain's ancient primal alarm system. Its job is to detect threats and trigger the fight or flight response. Under the chronic, unrelenting stress of burnout, the amygdala doesn't just get more active, it actually gets bigger. It hypertrophies like a muscle you've been overexercising. This enlarged, hypersensitive alarm system starts seeing threats everywhere. An ambiguous email from your boss isn't just an email. It's a sign you're about to be fired. A coworker's neutral comment isn't just a comment. It's a personal attack. This is why burnout is so often accompanied by overwhelming anxiety, irritability, and a feeling of being constantly on edge. Your threat detection system is stuck in the on position, flooding your body with stress hormones for threats that are, in many cases, not life or death. Your internal alarm is broken, and it's screaming fire when there's only a little smoke. This brings us to the most crucial distinction between mental fatigue and burnout, a difference that explains why one can be fixed with a long weekend and the other can take months, even years, to recover from. Mental fatigue is a problem of resource depletion. Burnout is a problem of structural damage and a crisis of meaning. Let me give you an analogy that makes this crystal clear. Think of your mind and body as a high-performance car. Mental fatigue is like running out of gas. The car sputters to a halt. The engine is perfectly fine, the electronics work, the tires are good. It simply lacks the fuel to move forward. The solution is straightforward. You refuel. You get a good night's sleep, take a day off, eat a nourishing meal and disconnect. You pour fuel back into the tank, and the car runs perfectly again. Burnout is not running out of gas. Burnout is driving that same car for 100,000 miles with no oil. It's ignoring the screaming engine, the grinding gears, and the flashing warning lights on the dashboard. Eventually, the engine seizes. The pistons fuse to the cylinder walls. The internal mechanics are warped, melted, and broken. Now, pulling up to a gas station is useless. Pouring the highest octane fuel into the tank will do absolutely nothing. The car won't start. You can't just refuel a seized engine. You have to take it apart and rebuild it, piece by painful piece. The very machinery has been damaged. That thinning of the prefrontal cortex and the enlargement of the amygdala? That's a seized engine. That's why you can take a 2-week vacation, feel a little better, and then feel completely drained and cynical the moment you walk back into the office. You've put fuel in a broken engine, and the moment you tried to start it again, the damage became obvious. But the damage isn't just neurological, it's psychological, it's spiritual. This is the second and arguably more profound part of burnout, the crisis of meaning. Burnout rarely comes from just working hard. Humans are capable of incredible feats of endurance when they believe in what they're doing. Burnout comes from working hard at something that feels pointless or worse, something that violates your core values. It's the erosion of the soul that comes from a profound and sustained disconnect between the effort you put in and the meaning you get out. Researchers Christina Maslach and Michael Leiter, pioneers in the study of burnout, identified 6 key areas that cause this disconnect. It's not just about an overwhelming workload. It's also about a lack of control, insufficient reward, a breakdown of community, the absence of fairness, and that critical factor, a conflict of values. Think of the passionate teacher who entered the profession to inspire children, but now spends 80% of her time on bureaucratic paperwork and standardized testing that she believes actively harms her students' love of learning. Her workload is high, yes, but the real damage comes from the conflict between her value, nurturing curiosity, and her daily reality, enforcing conformity. That's the friction that grinds the soul down. Think of the graphic designer who dreams of creating beautiful, meaningful art, but has to churn out soulless corporate banner ads for a product she doesn't believe in, day after day. It's not just the repetitive work. It's the feeling that her creative spirit is being used for something trivial and empty. This is what we call a values conflict. It's the soul-crushing weight of meaningless effort. When you pour your life force into a bucket with a hole in the bottom, exhaustion is inevitable. But it's an exhaustion of the spirit, not just the body. This is where the hallmark symptom of burnout, cynicism, is born. Cynicism isn't a personality flaw. It's a defense mechanism. It's an emotional shield you raise when you feel powerless and disconnected from your work. When you care deeply but are constantly met with obstacles, injustice, or futility, the pain is immense. So your mind, in an act of self-preservation, starts to care less. That detachment, that dark humor, that feeling that none of this matters anyway, is your psyche's attempt to staunch the bleeding. It's a way of saying, you can't hurt me if I don't care anymore. But this shield is incredibly heavy, and carrying it every day is a different kind of exhaustion. It disconnects you not just from your job, but from your colleagues, your passions, and ultimately from yourself. So mental fatigue is an energy problem, solved by rest and recovery. Burnout is an engine problem, a combination of neurological damage and a spiritual crisis, which requires deep repair and a total reevaluation of your work, your life, and your values. The first is a temporary state. The second is a fundamental breakdown of the relationship between you and your work. Recognizing this difference is the first step toward finding the right solution. You can't fix a seized engine by simply filling the gas tank. You have to be willing to look under the hood. So let's pop that hood. Let's get our hands dirty and really examine the machinery of your mind and body to see what's actually going on. When we compare mental fatigue and burnout side by side, we start to see they aren't just different in degree, they're different in their very nature. Let's start with the most powerful indicator, your emotional state. Imagine 2 people. Let's call them Alex and Ben. Alex is a marketing manager in the middle of a massive product launch. He's mentally fatigued. He feels overwhelmed, like he's juggling a dozen glass balls, and if he drops one, the entire project shatters. His emotions are dialed up to 11. He's anxious, irritable, and quick to snap. He cares, in fact, he cares too much. The pressure to succeed is immense, and it's fueling a frantic, hyper-engaged state. He's drowning in the details, but he's still desperately trying to swim. His primary emotional signature is stress. It's a feeling of being overstimulated, of having too many demands and not enough resources. But underneath that stress, the desire to win, to get it done, is still burning bright. Now let's look at Ben. Ben is a teacher who, for the past 8 years, has dealt with shrinking budgets, oversized classes, and a lack of administrative support. He's experiencing burnout. Unlike Alex, Ben's emotions aren't dialed up. They're dialed down. Way down. He feels nothing. He feels a deep, hollowing sense of detachment. The upcoming parent-teacher conferences don't make him anxious. They fill him with a sense of dread and cynicism. He doesn't care if his new lesson plan is a hit. He's not drowning. He's emotionally deserting the ship. His primary emotional signature is numbness. It's a feeling of being understimulated, of emptiness, of seeing your efforts as pointless. The fire of his passion for teaching hasn't just dimmed. It feels like it's been extinguished entirely, leaving behind cold ash. Do you see the difference? Fatigue is characterized by overengagement and hyperreactivity. Burnout is characterized by disengagement and emotional blunting. One is an excess of stress, the other is a deficit of meaning. One person is fighting too hard, the other has given up the fight. This fundamental difference extends directly into your cognitive function, how you think. The mentally fatigued brain, like Alex's, is like a computer with too many tabs open. The processor is overheating. He struggles with concentration. He walks into a room and forgets why he's there. He has to reread the same email 3 times. This is classic brain fog. The will to focus is there, he's trying to force his mind to work, but the system is overloaded and lagging. It's a problem of capacity. He has the desire to solve problems, but his mental RAM is completely maxed out. The burned-out brain, like Ben's, is a different story. It's not just lagging. It's like the user has lost interest in opening any new programs at all. Ben doesn't just struggle to concentrate, he struggles to care. He experiences a loss of creativity and initiative. When faced with a problem like a difficult student, his first thought isn't, "How can I solve this?" but "Why even bother?" This is a problem of motivation, not just capacity. It's a deep-seated apathy that makes intellectual engagement feel like a monumental and ultimately pointless effort. The mind protects itself from further disappointment and disillusionment by simply refusing to engage. So while the fatigued person fights through brain fog, the burned-out person retreats into a mental fortress of indifference. Next, let's talk about the physical toll. This is where many people get confused, because both states can leave you feeling exhausted. But again, the quality of that exhaustion is profoundly different. Mental fatigue produces physical symptoms that are classic byproducts of the stress hormone, cortisol. Alex, our fatigued marketing manager, is wired but tired. He can't fall asleep at night because his mind is racing, replaying conversations and running through his to-do list. He might have tension headaches, a clenched jaw, or stomach problems. His body is stuck in a state of high alert, a perpetual fight-or-flight mode. It's the physical manifestation of being over-engaged. He feels physically drained, but it's the draining feeling of having run a marathon. Burnout, on the other hand, leads to a state of chronic soul-deep exhaustion that sleep doesn't fix. Ben, our burned-out teacher, might sleep for 10 hours and wake up feeling like he never went to bed. This isn't the exhaustion of a marathon. It's the exhaustion of a battery that can no longer hold a charge. His immune system is likely compromised, making him more susceptible to colds and other illnesses. He might feel a persistent, low-grade lethargy, a physical heaviness that has no clear cause. His body isn't in fight or flight, it's in a state of shutdown. It's conserving energy because its core reserves have been completely depleted by a prolonged, losing battle against meaninglessness and emotional drain. One is the body screaming, "I have too much to do." The other is the body whispering, "I have nothing left to give." Finally, these internal states, emotional, cognitive, and physical, drive very different behaviors. Your actions become a clear window into what's really going on inside. A person experiencing mental fatigue like Alex often doubles down. Their behavior is about trying to regain control. They work longer hours. They cancel social plans to finish a project. They skip the gym to answer more emails. They might become more controlling or micromanage their team, because their anxiety is driving a desperate need for things to go right. The underlying belief is, if I just push harder, I can get on top of this. It's a strategy of escalation. A person experiencing burnout like Ben does the opposite. Their behavior is about escape and withdrawal. They start to pull away. They might call in sick more often. They show up late or leave early. At work, they do the bare minimum required to not get fired, a phenomenon now popularly known as quiet quitting. They isolate themselves from colleagues, avoiding conversations in the break room. At home, they might retreat into mindless distractions like binge-watching TV or scrolling social media for hours, not for enjoyment, but for oblivion. Their behavior isn't about pushing harder. It's about protecting what little energy they have left. It's a strategy of self-preservation through disengagement. So let's put it all together. Mental fatigue is a state of overengagement. It's characterized by heightened emotions, a brain that's overloaded but still trying, physical stress symptoms, and behaviors aimed at regaining control. It's a problem of energy. You feel like if you could just get a long weekend or a week-long vacation, you could recharge and get back in the game. Burnout is a state of disengagement. It's characterized by blunted emotions and cynicism, a mind that has lost its motivation, chronic exhaustion that sleep can't cure, and behaviors aimed at withdrawal and escape. It's a problem of spirit. A week-long vacation doesn't even sound appealing, because you know that when you come back, you'll be returning to the very same soul-crushing conditions that caused the burnout in the first place. You don't just need a recharge. You need a fundamental change in your relationship with your work. You need to find meaning again. Recognizing which of these two paths you're on is everything, because the road back from fatigue is a scenic walk, but the road back from burnout is a steep, uphill climb that requires a completely different map. So let's unfold those two maps. Let's start with the scenic walk back from mental fatigue. This is a path of restoration. The core principle here is simple. For mental fatigue, rest actually works. Your internal battery is low, not broken. The goal is to find the most efficient charging port. The first stop on this map is what I call active rest. This isn't about collapsing on the couch and doom scrolling for 5 hours. That's passive rest, and it often just numbs you, it doesn't restore you. Active rest is about intentionally disengaging the overworked parts of your brain by engaging other parts. Think of your mind like a field. If you plant corn in the same spot season after season, the soil becomes depleted of specific nutrients. You have to rotate the crops. If your job requires intense analytical focus, staring at spreadsheets, writing code, analyzing data, active rest isn't more screen time. It's getting your hands dirty in the garden, playing an instrument, going for a hike, or having a deep, meandering conversation with a friend where there's no agenda. It's about switching from the focused, task-oriented part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, to the more creative, free-flowing parts. A weekend trip, a day off spent in a museum, or even just a 20-minute walk without your phone can replenish those specific mental nutrients that your work has drained. The key is that you come back feeling fuller, not just less empty. That's the sign of true restoration. The second stop on the fatigue recovery map is a systems check. Mental fatigue is often a warning light on your dashboard. It's telling you that the way you're operating is unsustainable. Ignoring it is like putting a piece of black tape over the check engine light. So, you have to look at the system. Where are the energy leaks? Is it your sleep? The science is non-negotiable on this. Consistently getting less than 7 hours of quality sleep is like starting every day with your phone at 60% battery and no charger. It's a guaranteed path to depletion. What about your physical fuel? Are you hydrating? Are you eating food that energizes you? Or food that makes you feel sluggish an hour later? And most critically, what are your boundaries? Mental fatigue thrives in the absence of clear lines. It's the quick email you answer at 10 p.m. It's the yes you say to a project when your plate is already overflowing. Recovering from fatigue requires becoming a ruthless protector of your time and energy. It means defining a clear end to your workday. It means scheduling your breaks with the same seriousness you schedule a meeting. It means learning to say, "No, I don't have the capacity for that right now." This isn't selfish, it's strategic. You are shoring up the defenses to prevent the energy drain from happening in the first place. For mental fatigue, these two steps, active rest and a systems check, are often enough. You rotate your mental crops, you patch the energy leaks, and within a few days or a couple of weeks you feel the fog lift. You feel like yourself again. But if you're on the other path, the burnout path, that map looks terrifyingly different. Trying to apply the fatigue solutions to burnout is like trying to fix a shattered engine with a new air freshener. It completely misses the scale of the problem. A weekend away won't cure burnout. A new sleep schedule won't cure burnout. Why? Because burnout is not a problem of depletion. It's a problem of demolition. Your very foundation of meaning, value, and identity has been compromised. The road back is not about restoration. It's about reconstruction. The first step on the burnout map, and this is the hardest one, is radical detachment. The source of your burnout is like a source of radiation. You cannot heal while you are still being exposed to it. This means creating significant, meaningful distance from the work environment that caused it. This is not a 2-week vacation. This is a leave of absence, a sabbatical, or in many cases, resigning without another job lined up. I know that sounds extreme, sounds privileged, sounds impossible for many, but the alternative is a complete and total system failure. Your body and mind will eventually make the decision for you, through a health crisis or a breakdown. Radical detachment is the act of choosing to get out of the collapsing building before it comes down on top of you. It's about creating a space so quiet and so empty that you can finally hear yourself think again. It's the essential, non-negotiable prerequisite for any healing to begin. Once you've created that space, the second step is an identity audit. Burnout doesn't just exhaust you. It erases you. It convinces you that your entire worth as a human being is tied to your productivity, your title, your performance. The cynicism and detachment you feel are a defense mechanism against the pain of a role that has consumed your sense of self. So, the work here is to rediscover who you are outside of what you do. This is a slow, often painful process of excavation. You have to ask yourself questions you haven't asked in years. What did you love to do before this job? What makes you feel curious? What makes you laugh, genuinely and without reservation? Who are the people in your life that see you, not your professional mask? This phase is about collecting evidence that you exist and have value completely independent of your career. It might mean volunteering for a cause you care about. It might mean taking a pottery class and making lopsided, ugly bowls just for the joy of creating something with your hands. It might mean reconnecting with old friends. You are painstakingly separating the threads of you from the threads of your job until you can hold them up and see they were never the same thing to begin with. This isn't about finding a new hobby. It's about finding yourself. The final step on this steep climb is a complete environmental redesign. You cannot go back to the same conditions and expect a different result. Period. The person who emerges from burnout is not the same person who went into it. Your priorities are different. Your values are clearer. Your tolerance for toxicity is zero. So the environment must change. This could mean changing careers entirely, shifting from a corporate world to a nonprofit, or starting your own business. It could mean staying in the same field but moving to a company with a healthy, supportive culture. Or, if you must return to the same job, it requires a fundamental renegotiation of your role and your relationship to it. This is not just about setting boundaries. It's about building walls. It's about having explicit conversations with your superiors about workload, expectations, and support. It means offloading responsibilities, delegating, and refusing to return to the unsustainable patterns that led to the burnout. You are essentially redesigning your job description around your well-being, not the other way around. This is the ultimate act of reclaiming your power. It's the understanding that your health and your sanity are not negotiable line items. They are the entire balance sheet. The recovery from fatigue gets you back to your baseline. The recovery from burnout forces you to create an entirely new, healthier, and more authentic baseline from which to build the rest of your life. So what does that even mean? Creating a new baseline. It sounds abstract, like a line from a motivational poster. But it's the most concrete, most gut-wrenchingly real difference between these two states. Let's make it real. Imagine your life is a house. Mental fatigue is discovering a leak in the roof during a heavy storm. You're stressed, you're running around with buckets, and you're exhausted from the effort. The solution is clear. You need to patch the roof. You might need a weekend, maybe a professional, but once it's fixed, the house is sound again. You can go back to living in it just as you did before. Recovery is about restoration. Burnout is not a leaky roof. Burnout is the horrifying realization, after years of ignoring creaks and groans, that the entire foundation of the house is cracked. The walls are leaning, the floors are sinking. Patching the roof is pointless. Putting on a new coat of paint is a delusion. The buckets won't help because the problem isn't the storm outside. It's the ground underneath you. You can't just fix the house. You have to tear it down to the studs, dig up the shoddy foundation, and build something new on solid ground. Recovery isn't restoration. It is a complete and total reconstruction. This is what we mean by a new baseline. You don't go back to the person you were before. You can't. That person lived in a house with a cracked foundation. Let me tell you about Sarah. Sarah was a nurse in a pediatric ICU. For years, she was the go-to person on her floor. She thrived on the pressure, the intensity, the feeling that she was making a tangible difference. She regularly took extra shifts, mentored new nurses, and chaired the unit's scheduling committee. She told herself the exhaustion was just part of the job. That was mental fatigue, she thought. She'd take a 3-day weekend, sleep for 12 hours straight, and come back ready for the fight. And for a while that worked. It was like patching the roof. But slowly things started to change. The patches weren't holding. The deep sense of purpose she once felt began to curdle into a bitter resentment. She started to see the hopeful parents of her small patients not as people to comfort, but as obstacles in her day. She found herself getting angry over small things. A misplaced chart, a colleague asking a simple question. She started calling in sick, not because she had a fever, but because the thought of walking through the hospital doors filled her with a profound, soul-crushing dread. The work that had once been her identity now felt like an assault on her very being. This wasn't just being tired anymore. This was cynicism. This was depersonalization. This was a catastrophic loss of efficacy. The 3 pillars of burnout. Her foundation wasn't just cracked. It was crumbling into dust. The crash came not during a dramatic life-or-death code blue, but on a quiet Tuesday afternoon. A doctor paid her a compliment on her handling of a difficult case. And instead of feeling pride, Sarah felt nothing. A complete, terrifying void. She went to the break room, sat down, and couldn't get back up. Not because her body was tired, but because her spirit had quit. Her recovery wasn't a vacation to Mexico. A vacation would have been a temporary escape from a house she knew she'd have to return to. No, her recovery was a demolition. She took a 6-month leave of absence. And in that time, she didn't just rest. She underwent a painful, systematic audit of her entire life. She had to ask herself questions she'd been avoiding for a decade. Why did she become a nurse? Was it for the genuine desire to help? Or was it for the external validation of being seen as a hero? Why did she always take the extra shift? Was it dedication, or was it a deep-seated fear that if she wasn't productive nurse Sarah, she was no one at all? She realized her entire sense of self-worth was built on a foundation of self-sacrifice. She had convinced herself that her value as a human being was directly proportional to how much of herself she gave away, until there was nothing left. This is the work of burnout recovery. It's not about finding better coping mechanisms to survive the old life. It's about designing a new life that you don't need to constantly escape from. For Sarah, this meant therapy. It meant rediscovering hobbies she'd abandoned years ago, like hiking and painting, activities that had no metric of success, no performance review. They were valuable simply because she enjoyed them. It meant setting boundaries that felt at first like an act of profound selfishness. When she eventually returned to nursing, she was not the same person. She moved from the ICU to a pre-op clinic with regular hours. She said no to joining committees. She took her full lunch break every single day away from the unit. Some of her old colleagues saw it as a step down, that she'd lost her edge. But Sarah knew the truth. She hadn't lost her edge. She'd found her center. She had demolished the house built on the foundation of, "I am what I do," and had poured a new foundation, one built on, "I am worthy regardless of what I do." That is the new baseline. Contrast this with recovering from a period of intense mental fatigue. Let's say you're an accountant who has just survived a brutal tax season. You're drained, foggy, and irritable. Your recovery involves sleeping in, reconnecting with your family, maybe taking a week off to go to the beach. You are intentionally recharging your batteries so you can return to your life as it was. You're not questioning your career choice, your identity, or your core values. You're just servicing the engine. You're patching the roof. Burnout forces you to question the entire vehicle. Why this car? Why this destination? Am I even the one who is driving? It's an identity crisis masquerading as a productivity problem. The fatigue sufferer wants to get back to their normal self. The burnout survivor must accept that their normal self was the problem. The very architecture of their life was unsustainable. This is why the advice for fatigue can be so dangerous when misapplied to burnout. Telling someone in the depths of burnout to just be more positive or practice better time management is like telling the owner of that collapsing house to just hang a new picture on the wall. It's not only unhelpful, it's insulting. It trivializes the profound, systemic nature of their crisis. It implies the problem is their attitude, not their circumstances. It's a form of gaslighting. The recovery journey from burnout is a journey back to yourself, but not the self you were. It's a journey to meet the self you were always meant to be, before you started building your life on someone else's blueprints. It's about excavating your own authentic values from beneath the rubble of societal expectations, parental pressures, and the relentless demands of hustle culture. You learn that your energy is not an infinite resource to be exploited, but a finite, precious gift to be invested wisely. You learn that rest is not a reward for productivity, but a fundamental human right. You learn that your worth is not measured in tasks completed or goals achieved, but in your inherent existence. You are not a human doing, you are a human being. This reconstruction is slow. It's painful. It requires a level of honesty and courage that is far more demanding than any all-nighter you've ever pulled. You will have to grieve the person you thought you were. You will have to disappoint people who were comfortable with the old you, the one who always said yes. You are fundamentally redrawing the map of your own life. And that is terrifying. But on the other side of that terror is not just recovery. It's liberation. It's the chance to build a life that doesn't just look good from the outside, but one that feels good from the inside. A life that is not just successful but sustainable. So how do we begin to build it? How do we architect a life that can withstand the storms? It starts with acknowledging a fundamental truth. The strategies that led you to success are the very same ones that led you to burnout. The relentless drive, the people-pleasing, the inability to say no, they were rewarded until they weren't. The first step in building something new is to stop using the old, faulty blueprints. The new foundation isn't built on hustle. It's built on boundaries. For many of us, the very word boundary feels selfish. It sounds like a wall we put up to keep people out. But that's a misconception. A boundary isn't a wall. It's a fence around a garden. It doesn't exist to punish the outside world. It exists to protect what is precious and growing on the inside. Your energy, your time, your mental health, these are the things growing in your garden. For too long, you've let anyone and everyone wander in, trample the flowers, and take what they want. Burnout is the state of looking at your garden and finding nothing but bare, trodden earth. Setting a boundary is not an act of aggression. It is an act of profound self-respect. It's the quiet, firm declaration that your well-being is not negotiable. Start small. It's saying, I don't check emails after 7 p.m. Not as a rule you'll break, but as a fact, like saying the sky is blue. It's blocking out an hour on your calendar for lunch and labeling it unavailable. And then treating that appointment with the same reverence you would a meeting with your CEO. Because you are the CEO of your own life. It's learning to say, I can't take that on right now, but I can help you find someone who can. You are not rejecting the person. You are protecting your own capacity. The guilt you feel at first is a withdrawal symptom from a lifelong addiction to external validation. But every time you honor a boundary, you are teaching yourself and the world how you deserve to be treated. You are tending to your garden, and soon you'll start to see things grow again. The second pillar of this new life is a radical redefinition of productivity and rest. We have been brainwashed by a culture that equates business with worthiness. We wear our exhaustion like a badge of honor. We brag about how little we slept, as if it's a sign of our commitment. This is a trap. True productivity is not about the volume of hours you work. It's about the value of the work you do in those hours. A surgeon is not paid for how long they hold a scalpel. They are paid for their focus, precision, and expertise during the critical moments. Your most valuable work comes from a mind that is sharp, focused, and well-rested. The myth of multitasking is a perfect example of our broken relationship with work. Research is unequivocal on this. The human brain cannot multitask. What we call multitasking is actually rapid task switching. Every time you switch from your report to an email to a text message and back, you pay a cognitive tax. It fragments your attention, increases stress, and degrades the quality of your work. Doing one thing at a time with deep, uninterrupted focus is not a luxury. It is the secret to high-quality output in less time. This is the essence of working smarter, not harder. And when the work is done, you must learn to truly rest. And let me be clear, numbing out is not resting. Mindlessly scrolling through social media, binge-watching a show you're not even enjoying, that's not rest. That's just a different kind of fatigue. It's a cheap anesthetic for an exhausted mind. True rest is restorative. It's an activity that recharges your batteries, rather than just temporarily stopping the drain. It could be a walk in nature, losing yourself in a hobby, meditating, playing an instrument, or having a deep conversation with a friend where you don't talk about work. True rest is an active process of replenishment. It's not what you do when you have nothing else to do. It's a non-negotiable part of the work itself. It's the fallow season that allows the field to be fertile again. With a foundation of boundaries and a new understanding of productivity, we can now turn to the third, and perhaps most crucial pillar, reconnecting with your purpose. Burnout is more than just exhaustion. It's a crisis of meaning. The cynicism that takes root is a sign that you've become disconnected from your why. You're going through the motions, executing tasks, but you've forgotten the reason you started in the first place. The work has become a series of what's without a core why to anchor them. Finding your why doesn't have to be some grand spiritual quest. It's often about rediscovering a purpose that's been buried under years of obligations and expectations. A simple but powerful exercise is to ask yourself why 5 times. Start with a basic statement about your work. For example, I work hard to deliver excellent results on my projects. Why? Because I want to be seen as competent and valuable to my team. Why? Because I want to feel secure in my job. Why? Because financial security allows me to provide for my family. Why? Because their well-being and happiness is the most important thing to me. Why? Because my role as a provider and a caregiver gives my life a deep sense of meaning. And there it is. Suddenly, that tedious spreadsheet isn't just a spreadsheet anymore. It's a tiny, tangible link in a chain that connects directly to your deepest values. When you connect your daily actions to your core purpose, even the most mundane tasks become infused with meaning. This is the antidote to cynicism. It reframes your work not as a burden you have to carry, but as a vehicle for expressing who you are and what you care about. Finally, the fourth pillar is building a genuine support system. And I use the word building intentionally because it doesn't just appear. It requires conscious effort. Many of us think we have a support system, but what we really have is an audience for our complaints. We vent, we rant, we relive our frustrations, and our friends nod along. While it can feel good in the moment, this kind of co-rumination often just amplifies the negativity, trapping us in a victim mindset. A true support system does more than just listen. It empowers. This means learning to ask for what you actually need. Instead of saying, "I'm so overwhelmed at work," try being specific. "I'm feeling really drained by my workload. Could we talk about something completely unrelated to our jobs for a little while? I need a mental break." Or, "I'm struggling to finish this presentation. Would you be willing to look it over and give me some honest feedback?" Specific requests give people a clear way to help you, turning passive sympathy into active support. And part of this system for many must include professional help. We have no problem hiring a personal trainer to fix our squat form or a financial advisor to manage our portfolio. Yet we hesitate to hire a therapist or a coach to help us manage the single most complex and important asset we have, our mind. Seeing a therapist is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of immense strength. It's a strategic decision to bring in an expert, an objective third party who can give you tools, perspectives, and strategies that your friends and family simply aren't equipped to provide. They are the structural engineers who can examine the blueprints of your life and point out the stress points you're too close to see. They help you build that new, sustainable life, not just with hope, but with a proven architectural plan. These four pillars: boundaries, redefine productivity, purpose, and support, they are the bedrock of your recovery. They are the materials you will use to build a life that doesn't just survive, but truly thrives. So let's start with the first pillar: boundaries. Think of this as drawing the property lines for your own well-being. For years, the world has been building right up to your front door, maybe even inside your living room, and you've been told that's the price of success. It's a lie. Boundaries are not walls to keep the world out. They are gates that you control. You decide who and what gets your energy. This isn't about a dramatic, "I quit" moment. It's about small radical acts of self-preservation. It's the courage to say no to a project that isn't yours. It's the discipline to close your laptop at 5 p.m. and mean it. Not just close it, but to let the work brain shut down with it. It's deleting your work email app from your phone. That little act of defiance is a revolution in your pocket. It's scheduling nothing into your calendar and defending that time as fiercely as you would a meeting with your CEO. Because that appointment is with the most important stakeholder in your life, you. At first, this will feel selfish. It will feel wrong. You've been conditioned to be endlessly available, a human push notification. But every time you enforce a boundary, you are teaching yourself and the world how you deserve to be treated. You are reclaiming territory that was always yours. This is the foundation. Without it, everything else we build will eventually crumble. Now, on that foundation, we erect the second pillar: redefine productivity. Our culture is obsessed with the toxic, broken model of productivity. It's a factory model. More hours in, more output. But you are not a machine. You are a human being. Your best work doesn't come from grinding yourself down to a nub. It comes from cycles of intense focus and deep rest. Burnout recovery demands that you divorce your self-worth from your output. Let me say that again. You must divorce your self-worth from your output. You are valuable not because of what you produce, but because of who you are. So, how do we do this? We start by celebrating effort, not just outcomes. We shift from a to-do list to a did list at the end of the day, acknowledging everything we accomplished, including resting. We embrace the concept of the minimum viable day. On your worst days, what is the absolute smallest step you can take that still moves you forward? Maybe it's just answering one email. Maybe it's just making your bed. That's a win. Celebrate it. You are recalibrating your definition of success. Success is not a 16-hour workday. Success is ending the day with enough energy to be present with your family. Success is reading a book for pleasure. Success is sustainable performance, not a suicidal sprint. This isn't about being lazy. It's about being strategic. It's about working smarter, not harder, so you have a life to enjoy when the work is done. It's about recognizing that rest is not the enemy of productivity. It is an essential ingredient. With the structure in place, we need to find our direction. This is the third pillar: purpose. Burnout thrives in the vacuum of meaning. The cynicism that you feel? That's a defense mechanism against pouring your soul into something that feels empty. Reconnecting with your purpose is about finding your why again. And your why is almost never about hitting a quarterly target or increasing shareholder value. It's deeper than that. This requires some soul searching. Get out a piece of paper and ask yourself some hard questions. What did you love to do as a kid before you were told what you should be? What problems in the world make you angry? What brings you a sense of flow where time just disappears? Your purpose doesn't have to be some grand world-changing mission. It can be found in small things. It might be mentoring a junior colleague. It could be perfecting your craft, not for your boss, but for the sheer joy of excellence. It might be creating a stable, loving home for your family. Often, the fastest way to find your purpose is to find it outside of your job. Volunteer. Take a class. Learn an instrument. Start a ridiculously niche blog about something you love. These activities refill your tank. They remind you that your identity is a rich, complex tapestry, and your job is just one single thread. When you are fueled by a sense of purpose, the daily frustrations of work become smaller. They are no longer a personal attack on your soul. They are just obstacles to navigate on a journey that has meaning. You are no longer a cog in a machine. You are the driver of your own life, heading in a direction that you chose. And finally, no structure stands alone. It needs reinforcement. It needs a community. The fourth pillar is support. Burnout is an isolating experience. It convinces you that you are the only one, that you are failing where everyone else is succeeding. This is its most insidious lie. The moment you speak your truth, you will find you are surrounded by people who feel the exact same way. Seeking support is not a sign of weakness. It is the ultimate act of strength. It is saying, I value myself enough to get help. What does this look like? It could be a professional therapist or a coach who can give you unbiased tools and strategies. They are the professional architects who can look at your blueprint and spot the structural weaknesses you can't see. It could be a peer group, other people who get it, who can nod along and say, me too. 3 of the most powerful words in the English language. It could be having an honest conversation with your partner or a trusted friend, not to complain but to ask for what you need. Saying, I'm not okay and I need your help to get through this, is a profound act of courage. We have been taught to suffer in silence, to project an image of effortless perfection. We need to demolish that facade. No one builds a skyscraper alone. Why would you try to rebuild your life in isolation? The weight of burnout is too heavy for one person to carry. But when we share the load, it becomes manageable. We build a web of support, and that web is what will catch us when we fall. Boundaries redefine productivity, purpose, and support. This is the framework. This is how you rebuild. Notice the difference now. Mental fatigue is a battery that needs recharging. You take a weekend, you sleep in, you watch a movie, and on Monday you're back to 80%. Burnout is a fundamental structural failure. A weekend off is like putting a fresh coat of paint on a house with a cracked foundation. It looks better for a day, but the underlying problem is still there, and the cracks will reappear. The recovery from burnout isn't a vacation. It's a renovation. It's a conscious, deliberate process of tearing down the systems that are hurting you and rebuilding something stronger, more resilient, and more authentically you. So where do you begin? You begin with one thing. Don't try to implement all of this tomorrow. That's the old thinking, the all-or-nothing approach that got you here. Pick one. Just one. Maybe tomorrow you will leave work on time. No excuses. Maybe you will take a full hour for lunch, away from your desk. Maybe you will reach out to that one friend you've been meaning to call. Small, winnable battles. That's how you start a revolution. Each small victory builds momentum. Each boundary you hold, each moment of rest you claim, each flicker of purpose you reconnect with. It is a vote for the life you want to live. This journey is not easy. There will be days you slip up. There will be people who don't understand, who push back against your new boundaries. But you have to remember that you are fighting for your life. Not your biological life perhaps, but the life you were meant to live. A life of vitality, engagement, and joy, not one of exhaustion, cynicism, and despair. Remember where we started this whole conversation. Confusing the ache of a long run with a broken leg. Now you see it. Mental fatigue is the ache. You know how to rest it. Burnout is the fracture. And now you have the blueprint to set the bone, build the cast, and heal stronger than you were before. Your story is not over. The chapter called Burnout is not the end of the book. It is the plot twist. It is the moment the hero, brought to their knees, finally discovers what they're truly made of. You have the knowledge. You have the tools. The only question left is, will you use them? The fire that burned you out can be the same fire that lights your way forward. It's time to pick up the torch.